Hey everyone and welcome to the channel. Today we have a pretty cool and simple project that will not only add a touch of style to your kitchen but also help you free up some counter space. A live edge magnetic knife rack. Before we dive into making this one, let's take a moment to appreciate the beauty and functionality of the magnetic knife rack. It's not only a convenient way to store your knives, but also a sleek and modern addition to any kitchen decor. This is a project you can whip up over a couple of days. They also make great gifts with a real handmade touch. Maybe repurpose that old oak plank you've been meaning to use. Pull a panel off the outside of your house. Basically, any strip of wood will work, but we are chasing a thickness of at least 19mm or 3/4 of an inch, and as long as you feel like you need to accommodate all of your knives. We're also going to need some magnets. Here I have some 30mm by 5mm or inch and 3/16 by 3/16, if that's a real measurement. And you'll need 4 of these spaced 50mm apart, so for me, I have a 450mm or 18-inch long board, so I'll be needing 16 pairs of magnets, 32 in total. And lastly, some epoxy. And I know nothing about this stuff, but I know I can get cheap stuff at my local hardware shop. It's not too critical on this project as it's just there to hold the magnets in the back. We're going to start by trimming our board to length and then get it through the planer. Then cut some recesses into the back of the board to accept our magnets and pour our epoxy to seal up all those holes. This board is pretty flat, so luckily I don't need to do a whole lot, but go through your joining and planing procedure to get your piece reasonably flat. It doesn't need to be perfect, but close enough that any bows or twists aren't going to hold your knife off the face of the rack. So now we need to make room for our magnets. We need to start by marking out our 50mm or 2-inch spacing, and then making 2 marks on each line to guide us with a Forstner bit. I'm going to use a drill guide to control the depth, but if you're feeling confident, you can freestyle it. You'll need to drill to a depth that leaves about 6mm or 1/4 of an inch on the face of the board. If you have a drill press, that would be ideal. It's time to set our magnets. Now these are slippery little suckers. They want to jump around and join to each other. So we're going to put a dab of super glue on each one to gently hold them in the bottom of the holes. And I'm not sure if it would happen or not, but it would keep them on the bottom and make sure they don't float in the epoxy. For the epoxy, I'm just going to follow the directions on the pack and give it a good stir. I'm going to tint mine black so it hides the magnets on the back, but you definitely don't need this step. You won't see any of this when it's mounted against the wall. I'm going to carefully pour out a steady stream just to fill our holes, trying not to get it everywhere. Now that we have our holes fullish with resin, this one can sit and do its thing until the epoxy is cured. Now it's been a couple of days and the epoxy is set up. We're going to need to give this one a sand to clean up our mess and cut our slots for our mounting screws. Now if like me you seem to make a mess when you do anything, it might be a good idea to quickly run this one through the planer just to take off any excess epoxy and generally get down to final thickness. After we've gotten it roughly cleaned up, let's give it a quick sand. My planer leaves a pretty good finish, so we're going to start off at 120 grit and get everything nice and smooth. Now that we have a bit better finish on the piece, let's cut the slots for the mounting screws. So let's make some 10mm or 3/8 holes with a Forstner bit to a depth of 12mm or 1/2 inch. Now that we have some holes to start, we use a slot cutting bit on the router to make our mounting slots. While I've got the router out, I'm going to buzz over the cut edges just to soften them a little and leave us with a little bit more of a finished look. We're almost ready for the wall. I'm going to give this one a quick spritz to raise the grain, another step that probably isn't necessary, but I do like to do it on anything that I think might have a chance of coming into contact with water in the future. After that's dried, a good sanding at 180 grit to smooth everything out. The reason I'm staying at a bit lower grit than usual is the finish I'll be using. Today I'm using hard wax oil, and it gives a really great finish at lower grits, leaving a really natural look and feel with a really durable finish. and on with a thin coat of hard wax oil. Time to rub this one in really well, leave it sit for a few minutes, then buff off the excess. Now that the oil's applied, we need to let it cure and it's all finished up. I already have one of these in my kitchen, but what workshop would be complete without a knife rack? So, using the anchors of your choice, pop some holes into your wall. Definitely following the instructions of the fasteners needed to mount it in your desired location, and pop in your screws. If you have a set of vernier calipers, double check the depth of your slot and leave enough screw shaft protruding from the wall to allow the screw heads to bottom out in your slot. Now that we have our screws in the wall, all we need to do is pop our rack onto its mounts, and we're all done. So this one is a pretty straightforward project with big appeal. If you can find a piece of wood with a story, it's a great talking point in your kitchen and a great way to display your favourite knives, as well as being a great way to store them when not in use to stop those edges being dulled rattling around in the drawers. As always, thanks for watching guys. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more projects. We love hearing your feedback and ideas, so be sure to leave a comment down below. Thanks everyone, see you on the next one.